So hi, and welcome to ConTracker at Westmont. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see where that starts for us. Our executive team some years ago said we want to get our arms around contracting at Westmont, and so they established a protocol, and our procurement webpage articulates the protocol, and people can get educated about what's involved in contracting at Westmont and see what the steps in the process are and so on. And when they are ready to submit something, there's a form link here, agreement submittal form. When they click that, they will see something that looks like this. And it gives them some guidance on the left, and then the form is filled out by them on the right side. And I have filled out this form as a dummy, so I get to be the dummy that you get to walk through it. And I've set myself up as the test approver, so you'll see what that looks like when the VP gets the thing for approval. I'll wait until we have some more people here to formally introduce Will, but he's going to show you what happens, and if he makes a different judgment about the contract type, then that will affect who downstream has need to be involved in it. So we ask a number of things about the contract, and then we ask people to give us the details about who they want us to interact with from the outside, and then we say, and you see it's a required field, the draft contract needs to come with the document. They have an option to send a copy of the responses, and so they can do that if they like. So here's going for it. I will watch this happen, and Will is going to momentarily take over the screen and show you what happens. So they click submit, and they get an acknowledgement, and if they asked for it, they will get a copy of what they submitted. So let me now, I think we're going to go into here. Here is what the kind of the guts of the system are. It's a big spreadsheet, but it's far more than a spreadsheet. So I'm going to pass the gavel to Will. Will, let me have you go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, good morning, everyone. When someone submits a contract for review, I get an email that tells me that, but I'm in here so much that I usually see it before I see the email even. But so that contract, when it's first submitted, is going to go to the top of the sheet. And the idea is that contract is going to move through these various stages and get to the point where its ultimate goal initially is to be an active contract with all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. So there's sort of a flow to this downward, and then also in terms of the processes to the right. Now they can sort of move back and forth as certain things happen, and basically the way we move them from one place to the other is simply through a column that sorts the entries that we manually sort as needed. So for instance, just to demonstrate that right off the bat, I would sort this, and it's always sorted by that status sort and then by the supplier, and that moves that new one that was just submitted by Troy into that submitted area. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a quick look at the submittal for a few basic things. Then the first thing I'm going to look at is what type of contract type did they take their best guess at. I get a lot of these unsures. 90% of them get changed to a standard contract, but we do have a drop-down menu. There are a number of choices there. There we go. The submittal that the person sent is attached. So I'm going to look at that and have a quick look at, what the contract is about. And in this particular case, I'm going to look at that and go, no, it actually needs to be changed. Oh yes, there's Troy's little trike. So yeah, that's pretty high risk stuff. I've driven it. So yeah, we're gonna change that to high risk. So that's one of the things I'll need to check because that impacts some of the other later automations. This selection of what type of contract it is going to automatically cause certain things to get checked here that are going to initiate some processes. If it's some types of contracts will initiate that this contract is going to need professional liability. Some will indicate it's a software that's going to kick off a whole different type of reviews and requirements. Food service contracts, contracts that involve the vendor processing credit cards to our students, faculty, staff, guests, where we're concerned about PCI compliance. You'll see that when this was low risk, it did not say it needed risk review. If it is actually identified as high risk, that's automatically going to highlight this needs risk review. And so I'm going to initiate that by putting in the date, and risk management is going to get an email, hey, I need you to look at this. Then when they do that, there's going to be probably a whole lot of back and forth in the comments between us. And then when we're all, kind of in agreement about what we need to do with this, then risk management is going to indicate they finished by putting the date in risk review is done. Other categories can trigger a need for a legal review by our legal team or a specialty review. And then, so once we've kind of determined what kind of contract and what sort of things are going to be needed in the review process, I move on to.
Before you leave there, Bill, just I want to note the flag there. There's a flag that says review status. At a glance, you can see that there's an unfilled review.
Okay, thanks. The type of contract might have triggered, it needs a PCI certificate, it might need a health permit. I'm going to assign the contract a number, which we have a pretty simple system. It's year, month, date, me, and is this the first one today? It's an A. This isn't the first one today, so it's a C. There are certain letters I skip because they look too much like numbers. So I skip B, I skip I, etc. So, and pretty much at that point, we kind of know where we're going with this contract. And so the next step, once all of that has been looked at and identified, is to actually go back, and I'm going to initiate that. The next step is the VP has to say, yes, I'm on board with this, proceed with review and execution. I should back up a little bit and say that's assuming that the requester said this vendor has been selected and we're ready to execute the agreement. Some of their other options are this is routine, the VP doesn't even need to see it, and they're usually right about that, and I know whether they're right about that or not. Or it's we're submitting this for input, but we haven't decided we're using this vendor yet, and that to me is a big flag. So don't sign this and send it off to the vendor even after you look at it. So that having been said, if it's not routine and I can just go ahead with it, then I'm going to, select this. Basically, this column will initiate all kinds of different automations and messages to different audiences. So this one is Mrs. Vice President, I need you to look at this and just let me know it's okay to keep moving on it. So at this point, when I've requested that, now you'll see that in division VP approval, submitted showed up automatically, and that triggers a message to the vice president, which in this case is going to be Troy, that I need them to look at it.
So let me now, in a moment, I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what that looks like on the end, on the receiving end here. I happen to get the risk review, but I'm going to pretend I'm the VP first. And so here's what the VP sees and does. They get a message saying so-and-so has asked for it. Here's some of the basics about it. You want to take a look at the request. You tap here. VP checks it out. If they want to, they can look at the attachments. And if they want to, they can make a comment, and they can either decline it or approve it. So we're going to, and they can send a copy. I don't know that many of them ever do that, but they can approve it. So I'm going to approve that one. And then let's just, while we're at it, take a quick look at the risk reviews. So, these days, most of those are going to Jason. He's out on paternity leave, so he's not seeing this one today. But so Jason similarly gets a transmittal that gives him a basic overview of it. He's able to open the update form, look it over. There's that number that Will just entered moments ago, and can see if there's anything higher or unusual about it, and approve it. And so if I agree with it, all I have to do is if I say everything's okay, or once I say everything is okay, then I will remark it as today's date and submit the update, and that closes it. As Will mentioned, sometimes there's back and forth that happens in the comments area.
So now the VP has approved proceeding with the review. At this point, I'm not going to do it right now, but I am going to say that from this point on, most of the automations require that there's a current document in this field, which is a link to a cloud-based storage. So we'll just kind of pretend I've put that there. But because this document's going to start to change, it might get into draft form that goes back and forth with the supplier or with the department. Eventually it gets to the point of being offered out as a contract. So this is where we always keep, here's the current version we're all talking about. So that's going to start with the submitted version, which I'm going to put in there initially. So then once I've done that, I'm going to change the status of this to in review. And I'm going to send the requester a notice that, okay, now I'm starting initial review. Pay attention. I may have questions for you, or you will see the next steps with the supplier if, I don't have questions for you, is essentially the message that they get. So Troy should get a message right now saying that I've started that process.
And is that an alert or an update?
That's an alert.
So let me go ahead and demonstrate that then. I'm going to just, and now you'll see that here's the alert that I got. This one doesn't ask me for interaction. It just tells me things. We acknowledge and receipt it. Here's the information about it. Things you don't want to do yet, things you do want to do yet. And so here's what to, kind of an expectation management message basically for everybody.
Now, if I'm going to work on it right away, I might just leave it where it is. So as I said, I might just decide to just leave it where it is and start working on it right away. Or it's possible, I know I'm not going to get till later this afternoon because of everything else I have going on. So I might, just to make sure it's in the right spot, go ahead and again sort the sheet. So it's down here with the others that, I need to review these. So at that point, I'm going to just start all the different, things that we want to look at in the contract. Some of the key areas that we focus on are indemnity and liability language. Want to make sure we don't get surprised by an auto renewal. So I'm basically going to just go through and start working all those things. This one had a risk review that already happened.
So you see the flag has disappeared in terms
right.
of open reviews.
So think about the best way to explain this. So I'm going to basically, if no other reviews are needed by legal or the other at this point is mainly I think the only one we've really got going in there so far is if there's something about our logos and trademarks and our college communications people need to look at what it says. And that's become less and less because I now pretty much know what they're going to say, and I pretty much know what to tell the supplier right out the gate. So I rarely need to loop them in anymore. So I'm going to reach a stage where I'm going to prepare a new document, and it's going to be one of a few things. It's going to be a draft I'm going to send to the requester. Internal draft, and that's only going to go to the requester. It's going to go back to them and say, look, here's the things that we need to change. I wanted you to look at it before I send it to the supplier. And it sort of says, do you agree? Should I just send it as an offer, or do you think they're going to have some problems with this and I should send it to them as a draft? We're kind of at the stage where we've realized if it has that much editing, we probably should just send it as a draft because there's going to be some back and forth on it. So once the requester replies to that, then I'm going to send that draft out to the supplier, or I'm going to have prepared an offered agreement and I'm going to send it out as an offered agreement, one or the other. And so whichever I do, let's say that this is going to go out to the supplier as a draft. I'm going to, change it to supplier has draft, and I'm going to send that draft to supplier and requester, and that's going to send the supplier and with a copy to the requester of a message that says, here are our concerns. We realize we're probably going to have some back and forth about this, so we invite you to look at it and get back to us, and we'll work on it together. So as opposed to, we're pretty sure probably the supplier is not going to have any issues. We might choose to go ahead and send it out as an offer. So, and that message is going to tell the supplier to reply to my email, whether they want to dialogue about it some more, whether they want to go ahead and sign it and send it back in. At this point, we're not using anything like DocuSign or in this or like that in here, but right now we have them sent back as a PDF, but we're looking at trying to move to that next step.
Yeah, we've only implemented the DocuSign feature for internship contracts of a certain category, and that's kind of in a pilot mode. It worked really quite well, and so we can imagine doing more of that in the future. But we're not yet fully running with that.
So eventually, we're going to get to the point where the supplier is going to send it back signed, and most likely, unless it's a regular supplier, the next step is going to mean they're going to need to supply us some insurance documents that have been required by the agreement, certificates of insurance and certain types of agreement, PCI compliance, certain types of agreement, their caterers, their health permit. So usually the status at that point is going to be active but needs documents. And once it's at that stage, I should add, when they do sign it and send it back, we also send a transmittal, transmittal of executed final agreement, and it's either active because we already have their insurance, or it's active need docs, and it's going to tell them, okay, hey, here's the signed agreement, but you're going to get another email outlining the things that you still need to supply to us in the way of certificates of insurance or other documents. So they would get that message, and then that's kind of where we would be at in terms of the status of the contract. And that's the point at which, if this is a new supplier and I don't have any of the required, went too far, and I know why. if I don't have any of the required insurances, and I missed something at the point. One of the things when I'm doing my review and I determine what's going to be required, I'm going to be adding required. Us being named as additional insured is required. Auto liability is going to be required. Workers' comp is going to be required. Let's say Choice Trike was going to communicate with our servers, and he was going to be out selling something on his trike to our guests, and he was going to be processing credit cards. We'd want cyber liability. And we might have decided in the end that professional liability is not applicable, and umbrella is kind of always optional unless we get to the stage where that's what we accept in lieu of cyber. So the initial transmittals won't even say anything about that. That's just there to prompt messages for renewals if umbrella is what comes into play. So generally that won't say anything in the beginning. So once we've have in there what the insurance requirements are, when they've signed the agreement, they're going to immediately, and this would be where we would keep again a link to the cloud-based storage of whatever documents we have regarding insurance, and we actually put everything there: insurance, health permits.
Well, maybe you could just scroll down to some of the active contracts and show them so they can see what it looks like when we have it all in place. So
you'll see that if it's an active contract, things look pretty good. I have a few renewals coming up soon, and the system highlights that and tells me, in fact, even today, tomorrow. So and as these dates approach, the system automatically starts sending about a month ahead of time. Anybody who is a month or less out from a renewal gets a weekly notice on Wednesdays reminding them, hey, you may not have it yet because you may not have actually renewed your insurance yet, but we're going to need this real soon. So and then if it actually expires, they get a different message saying, hey, this expires and this really needs your attention. So since we started sending those out automated on Wednesdays, it's been way less work for me to keep track of it. And suppliers might go 2 or 3 weeks, but they get tired of getting the message and then they do something about it. So it's been great. So, and you'll see these active ones. We have some people that are quite overdue. And some of this is a lot of things were on hold because of COVID. So a lot of things are just kind of starting to get back to normal with some of these suppliers. So back to our review. So we don't yet have any of these documents. We've outlined what's going to be required. And so we will then send that supplier a request for their certificates of insurance. Now, if I know this is a caterer or someone that's going to require PCI compliance, I'm also going to then send a request for their health permit or a request for their PCI as well. And one of the great features of Smartsheet is that you can always look at cell history and you can always see what was sent exactly when. You have a record of when any kind of message, any kind of request, anything else was sent to the supplier or the requester or anybody. So,
on that row, if you go over to the next to the name Clever Sheet, hit it. It's saved. You should have some outstanding update requests, I would think, on that right next to the supplier name, Clever Sheet. I'm curious why those aren't there. Anyway, it is possible on a row by row basis to check and see what is outstanding in terms of submitted requests.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So like if you look at the Kate Farms one, you can see the little thing there. Just click that thing by Kate Farms.
This one?
Yeah, but the Kate Farmstones, because there's none for
Kate Farmstone.
Cover Sheet. Yeah, so that just shows you that risk risk review was requested and has yet to be submitted. Oh no, it's complete. Okay, so it went to both me and Jason, but Jason's the one that completed it. Well, that's interesting. I should. Okay, good to know. Just found out something interesting new there. But anyway, that's just so that you can manage outstanding requests.
So at this point, the next step's probably going to be the supplier's going to get the certificates to us, and sometimes they miss a few things out the gate, and so they'll get receipt of incomplete. Hey, thank you for what you sent, and it'll show what's good, and it'll show this is still needing your attention. And when they get it all correct, then they get receipt and acceptance. It says, thank you, we've got everything we need. The status is going to get changed to active, and the message is just going to show that it's an active contract, no requirements outstanding. And then it's going to stay there until pretty much one of two things. Where are you? Yeah. Sorry, I'm probably making you all dizzy here. Here we go. And I'm going to get into some active. Oh, I should mention what I am doing here is I've already determined that when we have an expiration date for this contract, it's going to have an auto renewal division 30 days ahead. So this is just a little reminder to me that once I have this date, get that date in too, because then that's going to trigger some notices when that auto renewal is coming up to the requester saying, hey, this contract is going to auto renew in 45 days. Is that what you want to happen, or do we need to talk about this? And that message will also tell them, if I haven't heard from you and we hit that auto renewal date, I'm going to terminate the contract rather than let it auto expire, having heard nothing from you about your plans. So that has actually saved us a couple times in recent months where people did not want contracts to auto renew, and they probably would have in the past without that kind of oversight. So this whole thing of watching auto renewals has really been an important improvement in our process for us. But getting down into some active contracts, let's see. Yeah, I don't particularly have anything that's supposed to auto renew soon, but I do have some that are supposed to expire soon. And so again, okay, well, this is one actually where the person got back to me and told me I'll auto renew this agreement. So when this date hits, I'm going to get a notice, and I'm simply going to change the date. And the supplier's already got a confirmation that we plan to auto renew. And when we actually do it and extend this date a year, they're going to get another message saying, okay, this contract is now auto renewed until 4/30/22. So it's just keeping a nice record of what we said about renewals, auto renewals, contracts completing or being terminated if they did have an auto renewal provision. So
Great. Well, I think probably that's a good overview of the process, Will. Feel free to interject back if you realize, oh, there's that to say. But I'm going to go back to sharing my screen now. So you've seen this array, and what I wanted to then observe about the sort of the underpinnings of the tool. We have the ConTracker, let's see, where is it? ConTracker Westmont, this starred one. That's what we were just looking at. But there are all these other things that are related to it, and most of them drawn from it. So active contracts at Westmont simply looks at this list and summarizes those that are currently active. Here's all of our caterers, and here's the ones sitting out there waiting for review. So we can do all sorts of things to see what's needed and available. I'm just going to look at my notes here. We talked about the row information attachments and comments and update requests, cell history. I'm glad you covered that, Will. Column descriptions, let me go back to that one. Many of the columns, most of them now, have a little button up here that you can hover that says, here's what's up. If it's grayed out, it's subordinate to a master agreement. If it's general liability expires, here's what to do about it, and so on. So that's helpful to the people that are inside the system working on it. I thought I'd show you too how easy it is to generate reports. So I've got somewhere here, where is it? Oh, I was going to show you forms. So the form that that the person filled out back here looked like this. Was built using this tool, and it's pretty extensive and pretty flexible. You can apply logic. If they answer this, then you present that. So it's not anywhere near as sophisticated as SurveyMonkey, but it has a lot of good stuff going for it. The editable report I thought I would show you. Let's say you want to find out something about this contract. You can just say, you can go pick your columns. Let's see, I want to find out when general liability requires. Let's GL expires. Here we are. So if I look at that, I can take a look at when does the GL expire, and I could even filter for that. I could say I only want to look at the ones where general liability, let's see, general liability expires is in the future, or is not in the future. Let's see if there's anything that's already expired. So we'll change it to read as not in the future. So if I say okay to that, then now I see all of those that are, well, it shows me NAs. I could suppress those if I wanted to, but that I can glance at it that way. I can group things in different ways. I can, instead of looking at it by contract type, I can look at it by contract value. We only have 3 categories there. Let's see, contract value. So I can just change that, and now I'm looking at all the contracts that are, grandfathered, little ones, big ones, and so on. And some of them somehow got there with no contract value. So those are the kinds of things we'll go back and fix when we discover them. We can summarize in different ways. We can, I don't think we have anything to sum here, but you can do various calculations on the columns. You can sort within the columns. So we're sorting by supplier here, but we could sort by billing department name. So when we put that in there and open it up, then we've got billing department name. All of the advancement things are together. The cause store things are together, and so we can sort down to 3 layers deep if we wanted to. It's a maximum of 3 layers. So the point is that it's super easy to make that massive information that is living here. You can distill it down to what you want to look at right now, real easy, and customized to what your needs are. We also have a tool called Dynamic.
That blows people away when they ask you what they think is going to be a really difficult thing for you to supply, and you send them a nice little report, 4 minutes later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super easy. We are introducing now to our constituents internally a feature called Dynamic View. This one shows all of the stuff that only Troy has access to. And so you can set things up so that only the right people get to see certain things. This is a subset of that whole list in which Troy Harris is in there as vice president. So let's see, maybe if I think I'm vice president on this one. So if I refresh this, let's see if it worked. We've been having a little trouble with them. There it is. Okay, so that's that one that was just, a few minutes ago. I entered this one, it got into the stream, and now it's visible for me here. If I was the VP, I could see what's going on with each of my contract, and if I wanted to find out more about it, I tap it and I can see whatever detail is fitting for me to see. And under certain circumstances, it could be set up to enable editing certain things and only showing things under certain conditions. And so there's a lot of flexibility in that. We have a go ahead.
Also helpful to me with things like personnel changes. I can pull all the people that, all the contracts that Troy Harris was the requester, and I can change them all to Jason, in just one quick fell swoop, and then he starts getting all the automations on them. So it's great that way too.
Yeah, good point. And it's set up for groups, and so I can there's a procurement group, and Jason and Will and I are all in that group. When I retire, all he has to do is pull me from that group, and I can no longer see this stuff. It's super easy back behind the scenes. We have a dashboard view, so we have currently active 68 standard contracts, 42 software contracts, and a smattering of others. We can get to various resources. We can see some stats. Contractors on hold, you see a -2. There's a technical thing going on behind the scenes there that probably needs to be fixed. But if you want to see what all of our contracts are, here's what they are. Here's what's in the pipeline. Here's what's awaiting risk review. Here's some things with target dates ahead. Here's the ones that are looking for insurance certificates. So you can present in a capsulated form the essential statistical information as may be helpful. When you are working in Smartsheet, you have a home page, and there's a bunch of information available to you there, and you have the opportunity to look at what your full set of resources. And so I mentioned in the email, but we have a coupon tracker. We also use this for some compliance management work. We're doing COVID response in it. We have our whole emergency operations plan is built into Smartsheet. We're helping financial aid folks gather information from students for emergency federally funded grants that could have been put in COVID response perhaps. But we're building a budget model in the financial system. Housing and Parking has people signing up for the summer for housing on campus and using Smartsheet for that. The Institutional Review Board has been working for a couple of years with Smartsheet. So when somebody has to, get reviewed by the board, they submit a form, and the form helps decide what level of review is required, and when it's, when it gets assigned to the shepherd that is going to walk through with that with the investigator, and so that's working really quite well. Mailing services. Every school that distributes mail has a similar thing, I think, where every year a student, hundreds of students leave, and those mailboxes have to be reassigned to the new students coming in. That used to be an all-day task for our mailing services folks, and it's now a 10-minute task because of what we did in Smartsheet. Will's doing a lot of work with meal planning, especially related to the COVID thing, where people are having to drop off and pick up meals and so on. We're teaching people about how to use it at Westmont with the on-ramp tool. Potter's Clay is one of our functions. Risk management, we use some stuff there, and so there's just a slew of ways that Smartsheet has already been making a difference for us over the last decade at Westmont. So I think that's going to give us a few minutes. I'm going to stop share and say hello to some folks that haven't had a chance to do that yet. Wave hello to Will Groneveld. Thanks, Will, for walking us through that. Will is our procurement guy. And so he and I have been working on this tool for a long time now. I think it's probably we're approaching 3 years on it, I think. And it's been transformative for us. So we kind of jammed through a whole lot of stuff, overwhelmed you, I'm sure. Like Will said, we probably made you dizzy with all the flipping around, but you got a sense of it.
One big point we didn't make is every time you come up with an idea for how to improve it, or you have a change in the circumstances, like, well, we need a way to do this. Smartsheet's incredibly flexible in terms of how you can add new processes, change processes. Our quarantine meal system probably went through 20 versions in the first 2 weeks. And
until it settled into something that works. Yeah. And until it settled into a solution that works.
Right. Yeah. So, and great to collaborate with people and come up with something that works for everyone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been amazing how versatile it is.
It's like amazingly flexible.
Yeah. So what are you left to wonder?
I have a question.
Sure, James. Hi.
I may have missed it because I was trying to get in. What environment are you running your documents in?
The documents? Are you talking about the spreadsheet tool, or are you talking about the documents that are attached to it? How do you mean?
I think the ones that are attached. You mentioned you put it on the cloud server.
Oh, right. Yeah. So we use Ignite. Some places use Box, some use Google, some there's different cloud service providers, and all of them function quite similarly. And so we store a file in Ignite. We get the URL for that file and plug that into the Smartsheet.
And then it's like shared editing kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a whole proofing process that we haven't taken advantage of. It's a relatively new feature in Smartsheet. Right now we're passing back and forth PDFs, but we can actually, within Smartsheet, there's a way to have people comment on stuff and get to resolution back in iterations on a document until everybody agrees on it, and then it's adopted. So that's something we will move further into as time allows. We answered all the questions, huh?
I guess we did.
So,
Either that or we put them asleep. Yeah, go ahead, Steven.
Are you building out all the commands and objects in the Smartsheet, or is somebody doing it for you?
Oh.
So is each department building out their own route?
Yes and no. It's no code development, and so it's just picking and choosing things. It's sort of similar to the well, let's go back. I'm going to share sheet, and I'll show you the an example of that. So here we are. When I get that out of the way, the Zoom thing has to get out of the way. There we are. In automation, we have these workflows. In fact, I'll just show you right now. I made a change to workflow this morning. I'm going to change it by date modified, and I said this morning, because I didn't want to interrupt Jason at home for this demo, I changed it so that it would show only me. But now I'll go back in and say, this really needs to go to Troy and Jason. So I'll fix that. And now I hit save. And the next risk review that comes in is going to go to Jason. But here's what, it's okay. When the column called need risk changes to any value, and that value is not a blank value, then send this request for an update to these people. And here's a cover letter, you can say, so to speak, and what fields do you want them to act on? You just put that there. So all of that is done, entirely. What's the word? Intuitively, and zero coding. Did that approach your question, Stephen?
Yeah, kind of. So let's assume if you're starting brand new and it's a blank, who supplies all these different categories? Do you have to build it yourself?
We built it ourselves.
Okay.
And so Troy and Will made this whole thing happen.
So when an entire department wants to use it, you're probably going to have one or two administrators that actually is responsible for the build out, and the rest are just users who just selects from the pre-filled drop downs, right?
Yeah. I can show you another example. That's over in my home page. And I'll go to the folder called Westmont Housing and Parking. And let's just open up summer housing. So just a couple of weeks ago, the guy from housing said, "We have this need. Can you help?" And so I said, "Sure." So we built out a whole process for them, and now that sheet is shared with them. I currently am the owner. I need to fix that probably to have them become the owner of it. But most of the continuing development of it, ideas about, oh, I need to have a message that goes to so-and-so under this set of conditions. Well, John is new to Smartsheet, but he's already building automations that so he can just say, well, I want to tweak it here and make it more like I think it ought to be. So that's there's a learning curve, of course. I've been doing this for going on 11 years, and I know a lot of the tricks and shortcuts and capacities that people may not be even aware of, but and so I'll do some of the more sophisticated stuff until other people catch on. But Will has surpassed me in some areas. What he developed about how to manage these triggers and build out triggers in the automation process. He's got all them in this sort by name. He's got triggers that are scheduled and triggers that are triggered, and alerts that are system based, and so on. So there's he's done some fairly sophisticated stuff, just learning by doing, and achieve some really great process improvements.
What's the cost to Smartsheet?
The entry level is around $900 a year. You have to have a minimum of 3 licenses, and practically everything you've seen today can be done for that price. If you want to build it yourself.
So they charge for a number of licensed users? Yes,
they do. Yeah. So the 900 is for 3 licensed users. Westmont bought their higher ed package, and it's approaching $20,000 for us annually. It gives us 25 licensed users. Now, licensed users, we have hundreds of users, but only some people are licensed. And the only reason you need a license is to create something. If you
for admin rights.
Yeah. Well, for certain kinds of you can actually have admin rights without having a license. There's a lot you can do. Like if I created a sheet, I could give you admin rights, and that would allow you to, add columns and, do all sorts of stuff to it, but you couldn't create the new sheet yourself. That would be a limitation of not having a license. But within a given sheet, as an admin, you can do a lot of stuff.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, we have in our package, we have access to their center of excellence. We have dynamic view, which I showed you briefly. There's a feature called data mesh that we are just starting to implement that enables sharing of data between sheets easily. Data uploader grabs information, and there's a bunch of ways in which we've been using data uploader to pull things from Excel files dynamically into this. There's a pivot that works like Excel's pivot tables, and Google Sheets has pivots. There's work apps. Can take there's a more sophisticated calendar thing built in. So there's a variety of things that came with our, for the approaching $20,000 that we are spending for this capability. But as you can see, we are leveraging it a lot. I mean, there's just a lot of ways in which the tool is providing benefit to the college, and so the college is pretty satisfied with the cost benefit so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, if you thought this was useful and wanted to do it without having to figure it out for yourself, Westmont certainly is willing to allow me to do that for you. We would charge you for that, but and we could work out the details about that. But I've done a bunch of work for other schools, probably 20 different schools that I've been hired to do Smartsheet stuff for. And so we just, we have a pathway for that, and that's worked out, well for the college and for those folks. So I'm not trying to talk you into anything. It's just telling you what's available. So. All right. Well, enough. Tell me, James, you're the one that asked for this. How close does this come to anything that you were imagining?
Oh, me? I think this is actually really good because it not only can handle the contracts, it could probably handle other stuff too. Mm-hmm. But oh, bye, Stephen. Yeah, I think it would be a good possibility. I think the price point is actually on the very low end in terms mm-hmm. of a platform. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. Well, give it some thought. And,
yeah.
If we can be a part of helping you make that possible for you, glad to do that. So.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. All right. Well, Shelby and Lisa, it was nice to see your faces.
Yes. Wonderful.
Nothing you left to wonder, huh?
Thank you. No, this was very interesting to see. My goodness, it has a lot.
It's
something to think about. Yeah.
I was telling my boss the other day, I report to the VP Finance, and we were working on some stuff related to COVID. And I won't go into the details, but like I said, I've been doing this for a decade, and I'm blown away still sometimes by how amazing this thing is. How in a flash we can build up things and make them work, and notifications are sent, and like the college's clinic provider was able to see into our system and get the names of the people they had to schedule vaccinations for, and report back to us that they had their vaccinations, and just all sorts of amazing things that can happen with this tool. So it's far more than, it has far more capacity than simply a contract management tool.
I've automated so many different things in the procurement area with administration of different programs with different suppliers, the interface between the program and our end users, and the whole quarantine sick meal thing. It's just been amazing what I've been able to make very simple for everybody, and people are really starting to grab a hold of how useful this is, to know where to go, to make a request, supply the information we need up front, and get a quick answer instead of just all the phone calls and emails back and forth that used to go on the most basic of things. It's been fantastic.
Wow. That is really great. Oh my goodness. Oh, wonderful.
Right. Well, thanks to everybody. And again, nice to see your faces, and we'll be in touch one way or the other in times to come.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Okay.